money at more and more. I know the guys that they're using as well will hire people that puts them to work, but here another $1 billion to hire more cops, and the money comes from the stimulus bill, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. The official said the law is designed to help pull the U.S. out of the recession by providing and saving jobs and help those affected by the downturn in the economy. The Department of Justice received more than 7,200 applications for more than 39,000 officer positions, representing a total of $8.3 billion in requested funds. As we continue to see the economic collapse, anytime they make grants like this available, you will see a rush of applications. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And, you know, during the Great Depression, you know, at least we built things like the Hoover Dam, highways, bridges, parks. But what do we do now? We just hire more law enforcement to stimulate the economy.
Yeah, and as the economy gets worse, of course, crime will go up. It will justify and legitimize more and more of a police state.
A police state, exactly. I mean, that's the direction they want to take us, so it's no surprise there that that's what they're doing.
Well, I found this interesting. We had spoke about this on the National Guard's website and several others. They have offered a job listed as Corrections Officer Internment Resettlement Specialist. Now, those of you that have been listening to the broadcast where we discussed the possibility, as Glenn Beck had, of FEMA camps and possibly through this swine flu that they are projecting to come on us, where there would be some kind of a mandatory internment. We're seeing now the National Guard actually put out a job which description is Corrections Officer Internment Resettlement Specialist, and it has a job description. As an Internment Resettlement Specialist for the Army National Guard, you will ensure the smooth running of military confinement, correctional facility, or detention, internment facility similar to those duties conducted by civilian corrections officers. This will require you to know proper procedures and military law and have the ability to think quickly in high-stress situations. Specific duties may include assisting with supervision and management operations, providing facility security, providing custody, control, supervision, and escort, and counseling individual prisoners and rehabilitative programs. So it goes on to what the pay is and the training required. So I'm not going to say this has never been listed before, but in your research, Brian, have you ever come up on someone with a position of a corrections officer internment resettlement specialist, and is this a red flag?
It's a red flag to me, folks. Internment resettlement specialist. A concentration camp guard, in other words. I mean, they can, you know, color it up or paint it in whatever light they want, but that's essentially what that is.
Exactly, and we're going to follow up on that, but again, I was very surprised to see that in print, and in light of what is coming out with the swine flu by design pandemic that they're orchestrating for September, October of this year. Next hour we will do our weekly swine flu update, which has just happened by happenstance because there's so much information each week on it. We will go into this a little further. Mr. Chapman hadn't called us, Brian. Let's just go ahead and continue with the news. Anything you'd like to start with?
Speaking of the swine flu, as you say, there's something practically daily that comes out. In reference here to the swine flu, they're gearing back up. The propaganda is getting back into full swing, as we saw back in May. Military to deploy on U.S. soil to assist with pandemic outbreak. This particular article is from Natural News, but this was available on practically every major media outlet you could see this week. CNN covered it, Fox, you name it. Until now, what I'm about to tell you would have been easily dismissed as a conspiracy theory. It's the kind of story you might expect from the extreme fringe bloggers, the kind of story that never appears in the mainstream media. Only today it did, and it's not a conspiracy either. CNN is reporting this evening that the U.S. military is gearing up to get involved in the H1N1 swine flu outbreak widely expected to strike the U.S. this fall. As CNN reports, quote, the U.S. military wants to establish regional teams of military personnel to assist civilian authorities in the event of a significant outbreak of the H1N1 virus this fall, according to the Defense Department officials. When it comes to the U.S. military, the words assist, of course, could mean almost anything. Typically, the U.S. military offers assistance via the end of a rifle. This assistance could mean assisting with quarantines, assisting with roundups of affected people, or assisting with arresting and imprisoning people who resist vaccinations. Just to make it even more interesting, this operation will include personnel from all branches of the military, and it will involve the cooperation with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. FEMA is the group of geniuses who handled the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, as we all remember. They're the ones who confiscated firearms from law-abiding citizens defending their own homes and then thrust people into toxic temporary housing that caused neurological symptoms and breathing problems. Internationally, FEMA is known as the Federal Emergency Laughingstock Administration. But now, with the H1N1 swine flu, FEMA will be backed by the power of highly trained, heavily armed military personnel.
Yeah, and that is one of the many stories that came out this past week on the swine flu, and we will do more on that next hour. But it's amazing what we are seeing in the preparations for this. Obviously, there's not time for real study as far as testing on these vaccines. Last week we reported of the numbers of people volunteering to take these vaccines as a test case. So I guess there's people out there that'll try most anything for money. But we're going to continue that next hour. We have got just about a minute or so before we.
Well, you remember the sign we saw in the Metro in D.C. You pointed it out to me.
Yeah, all kinds of different information actually in Washington when we were at the was it the World Health Organization?
Yeah.
Had that big sign out front. There is a mass propaganda campaign in effect right now, indoctrinating everyone to prepare to take the vaccines this fall. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We will be back here on the Real News with fair on this very interesting, Brian, reported by the New York Times this past week, July 29th, 2009. Obama keeps military shadow government plan. New York Times, a headline like that ought to grab you, shouldn't it? Washington, a shift in authority has given military officials at the White House a bigger operational role in creating a backup government if the nation's capital were decapitated by a terrorist attack or other calamity, according to the current and former officials involved in the decision. The move, which was made in the closing weeks of the administration of President George W. Bush, came after months of heated internal debate about the balance of power and the role of the military in a time of crisis, participants said. Officials said the Obama administration had left the plan essentially intact. Under the revamped structure, the White House Military Office, which reports to the Office of the White House Chief of Staff, has assumed a more central role in setting up a temporary shadow government in a crisis. So anytime we see shadow government plans being displayed in the press, we want to bring that to your attention, because in light of what we're reporting with the H1N1 and some of the other various things that are happening around the country, continually, at practically every week, we report more and more military planning, military practice exercises, as we reported last week. So it would lend one to believe that there are a lot of contingency plans in effect right now. Would you say, Brian?
Reports directly to the White House Chief of Staff. That's very